what's up? I'll just preface this video by saying that this meatball sub right here is probably the best thing that I've eaten in the last 12 months. That includes an $850 feast at a 3 Michelin star restaurant that I had in Lyon, France last year. Today I'm going to show you the sauce, the ball, and the bread that made it all possible. To get started, I'll grab my stand mixer, and into the bowl of that, I'll measure 380 grams of warm water, 12 grams of instant yeast, 20 grams of sugar, 525 grams of bread flour, and then 12 grams of salt. Now, the dough hook goes on, and I'll mix this dough on high speed for 6 minutes. I know the dough is getting close to being done when it's taking on a nice sheen and clearing the bowl like this. But to confirm that the gluten inside is as developed as we need to shape these into nice tight sub rolls later on, I'm going to give the dough the good old-fashioned trusty tug test. No shearing, no tearing, so we're good to go. I'll flip the dough into a medium bowl and then come back and round it into a nice taut ball. This last little bit of gluten organization is going to make shaping these later on just a little bit easier. Now I'm going to throw a lid on this bowl and check back in 45 minutes. 45 minutes later, as you can see, this dough is grown by about 50 to 75%. And next I'm going to give it its one and only strength building fold. To do that, I'm going to start with the old soaking wet hand to prevent dough stickage. Then I'll grab a grip of the dough, pull it out, and fold it over. I'll repeat that 3 or 4 more times, working my way around the bowl. Then to finish, I'll grab a corner and fold that over the folded seams that we just made to get everything tucked underneath. From there, you guys know how this goes. I'm going to do a round and tuck move from 10 to 2 o'clock to get this dough brought into a tight, tidy ball like this. Now the lid goes on and I'll let this dough continue to rise for another 30 to 45 minutes while I get the meatball for this sub sorted out. For that, into an additional medium bowl, I'll combine 200 grams of whole milk, 50 grams of sour cream, and 1 whole large egg. From there, I'll whisk all that to combine and mention that the first version of these meatballs used buttermilk, but based on your comments, a lot of you guys can't get bee milk, so instead the sour cream and milk combo here is kind of like a poor man's version of buttermilk, and it works almost exactly the same. Next, I'll add 150 grams of cubed up white bread. For this recipe specifically, I really wouldn't recommend subbing in a rustic lean bread like pan de campagna or sourdough, mainly because when I tried it, the balls were a little bit mealy and fell apart more easily. Basically, that style of bread holds its texture too well and doesn't dissolve into a pasty starch slurry like it should. Speaking of that, I'm going to grab my whisk and stir that white bread into the wet mixture to get it all pasty and soft. And I'd say stir until it's broken down into something that looks like wet banana pudding. Next, I'll add in 1 pound of 80-20 ground beef, or I'll try. Then in goes 1 pound of 80-20 ground pork, and feel free to sub in alt ground meats here, but try to keep them on the fattier side if you can. Next, in goes 125 grams of grated Parmesan cheese, 15 grams of chopped parsley, 15 grams of minced garlic, a strong pinch of chili flakes, 3 grams of black pepper, 18 grams of salt, and then the juice of half of a large lemon, or about 15 grams. Once everything's in the bowl, I'm going to snap on some gloves and get to work smushing this meat into a homogeneous mixture. When things are roughly mixed together like this, I'm going to switch from a squeezing and folding maneuver into more of a whipping motion. This more aggressive action is going to link up a lot more of the myosin proteins inside of the meat, making it much stickier and easier to form into a nice round ball of meat. Next, I'm going to grab my scale and divide this farce into 15 100 to 105 gram chunks. From there, I'll work to get this meat even stickier by throwing it back and forth in my hands a little bit. Then I'll give it a nice lengthy roll in the palms to bring it into more of a round ball shape. But there's a lot of moisture in these meatballs, and while that's going to make them super moist and delicious, it's also going to make them very hard to get perfectly round. So don't sweat if yours are a little bit flat. Once these are shaped, I'm going to move my balls over to a parchment lined sheet tray, but I'm not going to cook them just yet. First, I need to get back to my bread. This dough's been rising for 90 minutes in total, and as you can see, it's more than doubled in size, it's looking strong, and it's full of life. I'll flour my cutting board next, then the dough, then I'll flip that dough onto the board. Another quick hit of flour to keep the dough from sticking to me, and then I'll aggressively degass the dough. This dough is very strong, and if we left any of those big air bubbles behind throughout the shaping, those would persist through the bake and leave us with weird, deformed, and maybe even collapsed sub rolls. Next, I'll grab my gram scale and then cut the dough into 6 roughly 150 gram sized pieces. From there, I'll give them a quick pre-shaping. That means another degass, then I'll fold the back sides over one another 2 to 3 times. Then I'll flip this piece of dough onto those folded seams and then round it into a ball with a medium amount of tension. No need to get it super tight, because if it's too tight, it's going to be hard to stretch it into a long, narrow shape. Once I've got all 6 of these divided and pre-shaped, I'm going to cover them with a damp towel and let them rest for 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, when I check back, my dough balls are nice and relaxed, and I've got 3 things set up to finish them off. The first 2 are untoasted white sesame seeds and a damp paper towel. That's how the seeds are going to stick to the rolls. Thirdly, I've got a baguette proofing pan that I've sprayed lightly with some pan spray. These proofing pans help support the rolls while they do their final rise and make them extra round, which is ideal for a sandwich filled with ball-shaped meat. I'll link to this one specifically in the description if you're interested. Now, to shape these rolls, I'm going to grab one of my pre-shaped balls and then flip it over so the seam is facing up. From there, I'll degass the dough one more time, and then I'll simply just roll the dough towards myself while trying to seal in as much of the tension as I can. After 5 to 6 folds, I'll switch to my palms and then roll this dough slightly outward to create a longer tube shape that's about 6 inches long. Notice now I'm using my fingertips and thumbs to keep the folded seam tucked underneath at all times. From there, I'm going to move this dough over to the wet paper towel. Note that the seam side is facing up. I'll give it a few back and forths to moisten it, and then I'll move it over to the sesame seeds to do the same thing. Once it's liberally coated with seeds, I'm going to move it over to the baguette proof pan seed side up. Next, I'm going to shape the other 5, and once I've got a full pan of 6 rolls, I'll cover with a tea towel to proof these for 45 minutes to an hour. The perfect amount of time to cook my meatballs and my sauce. So I'll load the meatballs that we shaped earlier into a 475F oven to sear them for 20 to 25 minutes, and I'll check back at about the halfway mark. While those roast, I'm going to grab a large heavy bottom pot and drop it on the stove over medium heat. Once it's hot, in goes a good long squirt of olive oil, or about 3 tables worth, then 1 whole white onion. I gave this onion a very small dice because I want it to melt into the sauce instead of stand out texturally. Then I'll add in 15 grams or about 4 to 5 large minced garlic cloves, and then finally a very strong pinch of salt. From there, I'll stir to combine and let these vegetables sweat for 10 minutes or so, stirring every couple of minutes. After 10 minutes, the onions and garlic are softened, translucent, and have lost most of their moisture. So next, I'm going to add a strong pinch of chili flakes to bring in a little fruity heat. I'll stir that in and let it bloom out in the olive oil for about a minute or so, and once it smells like a chili's in here, I'll add in 1 28-ounce can of tomato puree and then 1 28-ounce can of nice tasting crushed tomatoes. A quick stir to combine, then I'll bring it up to a simmer, reduce the heat to medium-low, and let this sauce reduce and get delicious for about 25 minutes while I thank Notion for sponsoring this video. Notion is a project management and note-taking software that I've been using as the flexible catch-all to replace all of the other productivity apps on my phone. To start with the basics, I use Notion to track my daily and weekly notes for all of the work that I do on this YouTube channel. And overall, I've created 2 main sections. One for YouTube that I share with my wife/coworker, Lauren, and the other is for all of my personal stuff. The YouTube section that we use is set up collaboratively, so we use it to create and organize all of our video ideas. We use it to manage our video production calendars and just keep track of general weekly to-do lists and all of our ongoing workflows. And you can set up Notion pretty much any way that you want, but Notion starts you off with a ton of customizable templates to choose from based on the type of pages that you want to create and what kind of work you need to keep track of. So for example, I use Notion's calendar to manage my production schedule. You can change the way you view the calendar, you can add icons, and most importantly, you can get the satisfaction of marking tasks as done. And honestly, that's still just scratching the surface of what's possible. So to try Notion and to bring a little bit more organization and efficiency into your life, click the link in my description to sign up for Notion for free. Thank you, Notion. Checking back on my meatballs, they've been searing for about 15 minutes at 475, so I'm gonna quickly take them out of the oven to give them a flip. As you can see, the outer side is taking on some nice color, but the side touching the pan is much darker golden brown. That stuff tastes good, so to get more of it on these balls, I'm gonna flip over the whole tray's worth and then throw it back into the oven for about 5 to 10 more minutes. 10 minutes later, I've got roasty, seared, golden brown meatballs. You'd think that all that high roasting would have dried these out, but there's a lot of wet bread and cheese in there, and that makes these pretty much indestructible. Also, cooking them hard firms them up for the sandwich. Spaghetti meatballs can be a little bit more tender and soft, but no one wants a mushy meatball on their sub roll. Over at the stove, my sauce has been simmering over low heat for just about 25 minutes and it's looking good. So in goes all of my meatballs and then I'll stir to combine. Oh yeah, this is important. I'm also going to give this sauce a taste for seasoning. So far, the only salt in there is the stuff I added with the onions. So I'm going to add another strong pinch of salt and then a small pinch of sugar to balance the acidity in the tomato. And now it's a pro level tomato sauce. Another quick stir to combine and then I'll load this sauce ball combo into a 350F oven to get a little bit more roasty and unified for about 20 to 25 minutes. Aside from building a ton of flavor, the oven is also going to reduce this sauce to the point where it's quite thick. Again, this is destined to be served in sandwich form, and saucy is ideal, but overly wet is mucho bad. 25 minutes later, when I pull these out of the oven, you can see that is a nice looking pan of meatballs. Note the final texture on the sauce too. See how it grips that meatball really nicely without being gloppy or pasty? That's perfect for a sub sandwich. For now, I'm going to scoot these meatballs out of the way to stay warm on the stove, and then I'm going to grab my proofed up sesame rolls. I know they're properly proofed when they've grown by about 75 to 100%, and when I poke them, they have a nice responsive buoyancy like this. Next, I'll grab my bread lame and give all 6 rolls a double score so they have a little weak spot to rise through in the oven. Without a score, we'd have blowouts on the side and undersized rolls. Finally, I'll give these rolls a few dozen squirts of water to help them steam up in the oven. That's going to help delay crust formation and help the bread get crispier in a home oven. And then in they go to a 400F oven to bake for 18 to 20 minutes. Cut to the time lapse. That always looks cool. Then after 18 to 20 minutes of bake time at 400F, these should be ready to pull. As you can see, they're beautiful medium golden brown and covered in toasty, fragrant sesames. The crust is thin, it's brittle, and crackery crisp. The inside is yeasty, fluffy, and soft, and it's everything you could want in a sub roll and much better than anything else you could just go buy. Now, let's make it into a sandwich. The first step is to lay out a halved sesame roll on a little baby sheet tray and then tear out about half of the bread contents of the top half of the roll. This is going to make that saucy sandwich so much more structurally sound because it's going to make a perfect tight-fitting lid to contain the balls. Next, I'll lay down 2 very thick slices of full-fat mozzarella cheese, then I'll load the whole tray into the oven under a high broiler. I'll give that 30 to 50 seconds under there, or however long it takes to bubble up the cheese and lightly toast the top half of bread. That looks perfect. See how the cheese is gooey and meltsome and the top bun is crisp but not toasted until rock hard. Next, on top of the cheese, I'll lay down 3 generous spoonfuls of minced Chicago-style giardiniera. I gave my giardiniera a quick mince before putting it on the sandwich because I feel like it stays in place better that way. The chunky stuff is more textural but ends up on the plate and not in my mouth. Behind the jarred, I'll carefully pile on 3 big dog meatballs with whatever sauce is still attached to them. Then on top of those, I'll add a little bit more sauce to punch up the overall sauciness. And then finally, I'll dome it with the toasty, hollowed out top bun. I'll give it a little press and then hold it with some pressure to glue it all together. And yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping it would be. Now, there's 2 ways to actually eat this. Straight up on a plate, restaurant style. This way looks the best, but it's kind of messy and will probably result in you eating it with a knife and a fork. The second option is to wrap it tightly in parchment paper like you'd see in a classic Italian deli. This way it takes a little bit more work and a little bit more practice to get it wrapped tight, but the sandwich is much more structurally sound this way and has a really classic sub shop look. I mean, you guys can see this, right? For me, that is just textbook meatball sub. The bread is crispy but also very soft, and there isn't too much of it getting in the way of the main event, the tender, cheesy, extremely flavorful meatball. The sauce brings some robust flavor and a touch of moisture. The jarred brings some spicy, lively crunch, and the cheese glues the whole thing together with its warm, melty fat. And I'll just say it, bite for bite, this sandwich brought me more happiness and satisfaction than the $850 feast that I had at a 3-star Michelin restaurant in France last year. Like, without question, you too can feel this happy with only just a few hours of work. I hope you try it soon. Let's eat this thing.